Have you ever considered how deep your trust in God's promises can go? This is a question that invites us to explore the realm of faith, a term that we often use but rarely delve into its profound significance. Faith, in essence, is a deep-rooted trust, an unwavering belief in the promises of God. It's a trust that transcends the visible, the tangible, and ventures into the realm of the divine. As we journey through the annals of biblical history, we encounter many individuals whose lives were marked by this profound trust. Yet there is one man whose faith stands as a towering beacon, lighting the path for all who dare to trust in God's promises. That man is Abraham. Abraham's story is not just a tale of ancient times, but a narrative that continues to resonate with us today, challenging us to examine the depth of our own faith. Let's dive into the life of a man who placed his trust in God's promise without wavering, Abraham. Abraham, then Abram, was living comfortably in Ur when God called him. Life was routine, predictable, and safe, but one day everything changed. God's voice pierced the comfort of the familiar, beckoning Abram into the unknown. God's call was not a gentle nudge. It was a radical command. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. Imagine the magnitude of this request. God was asking Abram to leave everything he knew behind, his home, his family, his security, and embark on a journey into the unknown. Yet God's call came with a promise so grand it was almost unbelievable. God said to Abram, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." What an incredible promise. God was not just suggesting a change of scenery, he was promising to transform Abram's life and, through him, the entire world. But the fulfillment of this promise hinged on Abram's response. Would he trust God enough to step out in faith? You see, faith isn't just about believing in God. It's about trusting him enough to act on his promises, even when they seem impossible. And that's exactly what Abram did. He didn't just believe God, he packed up his life and set out for a land he did not know, trusting that God would guide him every step of the way. This was a turning point in Abram's life. He was no longer just a man from Ur, he was Abraham, the father of nations. His story is a testament to the power of faith and the faithfulness of God. Abraham's journey began with a call, a promise, and a leap of faith. Abraham trusted God's promise and took the leap of faith. Abraham and Sarah waited for years, but the promised child was nowhere in sight. The journey of faith is seldom a straight path. For Abraham and Sarah, it was a winding road filled with trials and tests. They were promised a child, a blessing, a lineage more numerous than the stars in the sky. Yet, as the years rolled by, the promise seemed more distant, more elusive. Abraham and Sarah, in their human frailty, grappled with doubt and uncertainty. The biological clock was ticking, their bodies were aging, and the promise was yet to be fulfilled. It was a testing period, a time that pushed them to the edge of their faith. Yet Abraham, in the midst of these trials, held on to God's promise. He chose to believe even when circumstances seemed contrary. His faith was not swayed by the delay. He held on not because he was strong, but because he knew the one who made the promise was faithful. Imagine the conversations between Abraham and Sarah, their shared moments of discouragement, their questions and fears. Yet in all these, their faith was not extinguished. It was tested, it was stretched, but it was not broken. They chose to believe, to hope against hope. In the face of delay, Abraham's faith was a beacon. It was a testament to his unwavering trust in God. He did not let the absence of the promised child define his relationship with God. Instead, he allowed his faith to be the defining factor. Through their story, we see a beautiful tapestry of faith woven amidst trials and delays. We see a faith that does not falter in the face of delay, but rather grows stronger, more resilient. We see a faith that is anchored in God's promise, a faith that stands the test of time. Abraham's faith was not just about believing in a promise, it was about trusting the promise keeper. It was about knowing that God is faithful, that his word is true, that his timing is perfect. In the face of delay, Abraham's faith didn't waver. Against all odds, when Abraham was 100 years old, the promise was fulfilled. In the twilight of his years, Abraham became a father. The birth of Isaac was not just a joyous occasion, it was a testament to God's faithfulness. A child born to a man who was 100 years old and a woman who was 90. It was against nature, against reason, but not against God. For nothing is impossible with God, and Abraham's faith in him was about to be rewarded. Abraham and Sarah had waited for this moment for decades. They had yearned for a child, a son to continue their lineage. And now, in their old age, their prayers had been answered. Isaac was born, a healthy baby boy, a beacon of hope, and a promise fulfilled. His birth was a testament of God's faithfulness to his word. Abraham's faith had been tested time and time again. There were moments of doubt, moments of despair, but he held on to his faith. He believed in God's promise, even when it seemed impossible. And now, with the birth of Isaac, his faith was rewarded. The birth of Isaac was not just a personal victory for Abraham and Sarah, but it was a victory for all who believe in God's promises. It showed that God's timing might not align with ours, but his promises always come to pass. It was a reminder that faith is not just about believing in what we can see, but also in what we cannot see. This was a pivotal moment in Abraham's journey of faith. The birth of Isaac was a living testament of God's faithfulness. It was a reminder of the power of faith and the reward that comes with it. Abraham's faith was not in vain. His faith was rewarded with the birth of Isaac, a child of promise, a child of faith. Abraham's journey of faith was marked with trials and tribulations, with moments of doubt and despair, but through it all he held on to his faith. He believed in God's promise and his faith was rewarded. Abraham's faith was rewarded, showing us that God's promises always come to pass. Then came the ultimate test of Abraham's faith. In a world where obedience is often measured against personal desires, Abraham's faith was put to the ultimate test. He was asked to do the unthinkable, the unimaginable, the unbearable, and yet his faith did not waver. Picture this: Abraham, the man who had waited so long for the birth of his son Isaac, was asked by God to offer his beloved child as a sacrifice. The very son, the embodiment of God's promise, was to be laid on the altar. This was not just a test of obedience, but also a test of faith, a test of trust, and a test of love for God above all else. What's astounding is that Abraham did not question God. There was no debate, no bargaining. Instead, he prepared to do as he was told. His faith was so strong, so unwavering, that he was ready to give up his most precious possession, his son, if that's what God wanted. In the face of such an enormous challenge, many of us would falter, question, or even rebel. But not Abraham. His faith was as solid as a rock. His trust in God was absolute. And this is what makes Abraham's faith so remarkable. What can we take from this story? Is it the unquestioning obedience that Abraham displayed? Or is it his unwavering faith in God's promise? Perhaps it's the understanding that faith is not just about believing in God's promises, but also trusting in his wisdom, even when his commands are difficult to comprehend. Abraham's story is a testament to the power of faith, a demonstration of complete trust and surrender to God's will. His faith was tested in the most profound way, and yet he did not falter. He was ready to do what was asked of him, no matter the cost. Even in the face of this great test, Abraham's faith stood firm. His story serves as a beacon of hope and a model of faith for us all. It's a reminder that true faith is not just about believing, but also about trusting and surrendering to God's will, even when it's hard to understand. Abraham's story isn't just a historical account, it's a lesson for us all. This tale of unwavering faith in the face of uncertainty is a beacon of inspiration. Abraham's faith in God's promise is a testament to the power of trust and resolve. His journey from an ordinary man to the father of many nations underscores the immense power of faith. Time and again, Abraham's faith was tested, and time and again, he proved his unshakable trust in the divine. From the call to leave his homeland to the birth of Isaac, his faith never wavered. Even when asked to sacrifice his beloved son, Abraham held steadfast, trusting in God's promise. His story teaches us to hold firm in our faith, even when circumstances seem impossible. It implores us to trust in God's promises, for they are infallible and true. Abraham's faith is a reminder that with trust, impossible becomes possible. Like Abraham, may we learn to trust deeply in God's promises, knowing they will always come to pass.